Another Resident Evil remake is almost upon us, with Resident Evil 4 Remake out later this month. We went hands-on with this game late last year, but we've now been privy to some new gameplay and footage from a pretty large chunk of the game that we can share with you. It starts off in Chapter 4, we'll battle through the castle and even get a quick look at some late-game boss battles and tough enemy encounters. We've got a bunch of takeaways from this for how Capcom has overhauled and remade this horror classic, and if you're wary of spoilers, then look, this is your warning. You'll probably want to stop watching now. We'll get deep into some of the reads of later game stuff as we get through the video. And with that preamble out of the way, let's dive in. We'll start off with the most general point here. Resident Evil 4 Remake builds on the RE engine once again, and this is still one of the best looking game engines out there. This is sure to push the PS5 and the Xbox Series X really quite hard, even if you do still have some of the cross-gen stuff with the game coming out on PS4. From the amount of detail of the characters and the environment, to the way that the light and the shadow is cast by the flashlight and flaming torches, RE4 is a real looker on the new generation of hardware. And as big a step up as the visuals are, the same can be said for the gameplay. Resident Evil 4 Remake goes all in on the action side of horror, enhancing the game to meet modern standards for how horror games can play, and making changes that go well beyond just switching away from tank controls. When you get stuck into a fight with Los Ganados, there's the classic 1-2 hit of shooting to stagger an enemy and then going in for Leon's roundhouse kick. In particular, you can shoot a leg which will disorient them and then open them up for this melee attack. And there's also some balmy wrestling style finishes as well. But that's all before we get to the knife. As we covered from our first hands-on, this has been completely overhauled, letting you now parry pretty much anything that is coming at you, whether that's farm tools from the early parts of the game, to thrown fire bombs, and even things like chainsaws or the giant claws of the Garrador. The knife is also very useful as a finisher to stop an infected enemy then sprouting tentacle heads, which transforms them and makes them pose a much more difficult challenge to defeat. Just beware that the knife is now effectively a consumable, and you will need to pay to resharpen it whenever you need to. Capcom isn't just making a pure retread of the original, but are making changes and adding new content to it as well. One example is with more side quest missions that are dotted throughout the game, which can be taken on by picking up the blue flyers which are just pinned all over the place. The one that we saw added the task of selling a gold chicken egg to the shopkeeper with a reward of 3 spinels in return.
What can I interest you in?
And speaking of that merchant, you'll obviously want to visit him plenty of times during the game. You can upgrade and repair items while you're here, making your weapons more powerful, fixing up that knife that I mentioned before, and things like that. You've also got plenty of customization with your inventory. The attaché case returns, and it is just as flexible as you remember, letting you store plenty of guns and items in this grid of space. Bringing the inventory in line with more recent Resident Evil games, you can also register guns and items to shortcuts on the D-pad. But then, as if it wasn't already badass enough to be running around with an attaché case, I mean badass in a very 90s sense of the phrase, you can now customize it to get exactly the right look that you're going for. Want to be all business? Stick to silver and black is what I'd suggest. But you can go further than just changing the outer colour of this, and you can add special charms to it, like this is some kind of free-to-play shooter or something. These are more than just cosmetic and can give you special perks, like a chicken charm doubling the health recovery for all egg types that you can consume. One major section of the game that Capcom is expanding is around the lake, with the ability to now hop into a speedboat and explore a cave network that is filled with Ganados and things to find. In particular, there's a mysterious new shrine and some painted symbols that are dotted around everywhere. What will all of this mean? We'll have to wait for the full game to find out. RE4 fans dread having to babysit the president's daughter once she's been rescued, and Capcom are thankfully making big changes to what she brings to the remake. In particular, she doesn't just have a straight-up health bar anymore, and you can give her commands to be tight to Leon or loose depending on if you're about to get into a fight or not. That's a relatively subtle change from follow, wait and hide that you had in the original. But while she doesn't have a health bar, she's still not an invincible companion NPC that you might see in like The Last of Us or something. Ashley can still be downed and needs to be revived quite quickly, otherwise it's game over. Enemies can also grab her and start to try and kidnap her all over again. And again, you'll need to make sure to react quickly to free her in that situation, because it's game over if she gets dragged away too far.
We are just getting started, rookie.
And finally, now another maligned aspect of the original Resident Evil 4 were the QTEs. Capcom has taken the original Jack Krauser boss fight and completely overhauled it, going hand in hand with the enhanced knife abilities throughout the remake. It's still a knife fight, but as the exposition is going on, the back and forth between the two characters, you get to actually fight him and take him down.
Operation Javier.
So there we have it. Those are our 7 takeaways and things that we got to explore and see from the new gameplay footage of Resident Evil 4 Remake. We are now less than a month away from the game's release on the 24th of March across PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. PlayStation VR 2 support is also in development, but this will be coming as post-launch DLC.
It's got to be through that gate.
So I hope that you've enjoyed what you've seen here, and if you have, then please do the usual YouTube things of liking, subscribing, and hopefully we will see you again soon. Goodbye!
What are they?
Shh. Keep your voice down. Spread out.